Good afternoon, folks, and thank you for joining me. Today is New Guitar Day, and spoiler alert already from the box, it's from Rondo Music. For those of you that do not know Rondo Music, they are a smaller music distributor. They have a house brand, and you will see what that house brand is as we open this box. I actually do have several guitars from Rondo. One of them is even a custom from back when they did that, but they don't do it any longer. Still, they're one of my favorite brands. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into it. But for now, let's open it up. We're going to go in phases. I got the Husky with me, ready to go. We're going to knock this out. And I'm pretty sure it's actually going to be a box in a box. So I'll see you at the next box. All right. I was right. Box 1 out of the way. Box 2 ready to go, wrapped in plastic. And actually, I knew this was going to be the case when I bought it, because when I selected the item and I, went for checkout, they're like, "Hey, do you want this case?" And I was like, "Sure." It's an expensive item, relatively. Let's put it in a hard case. And it said tweed case. I've never had a tweed case. And to be honest, it looks pretty freaking cool. It's like this weird teal blue almost, like a sea blue. I love it. All right, let's get this plastic off. There we go. All right. Start opening. 1, 2, 3. Moment of truth. Okay. Yeah, I should have seen that coming. That's okay. It's got a little bit of wrap on top here. Some styrofoam stuff in the case. It's okay. Start pulling some of that stuff out. Doing this one-handed is always so much fun. Gotta get this stuff off the top. Awesome. Oh yeah. Already loving this. See if I can get this styrofoam out of the way one-handed. Okay, got all that out of the way. Let's move this down. Let's get a little bit of a better shot of it. Okay, so this is the Agile Perihelion 825-28. We'll go more into the specs later, but I mentioned that Rondo had a house brand. This is their main one. There's their symbol down there for Agile. It's the Perihelion, obviously a headless model. I want to say that they started making this particular model like a year ago, and what drew me to it was not only the shape but the colors they were doing with it, the fact that they were doing multi-scale, and my favorite feature, a Wenge fretboard. I'm not a huge believer or investor in tone wood as far as affecting your tone. I think your sound comes a lot more from your pickups and your amplifier than it does from the tone wood. Now that said, I do think that the tone wood matters a good deal for how a guitar feels and how it responds in your hand. So, like, if it feels good in your hands, you're going to be likely to keep playing it. And I have a few guitars that have Wenge on the fretboard, and I absolutely love that. I mean, just look at that. Not only does it feel good, but it looks fantastic. All right, enough of this. We're going to plug it in. We're going to do some sound. I'll run some specs across the screen, and we'll go from there. See you in a few. Yes, so this absolute monster has been, or at least become, one of my go-to guitars since I got it. It is one of the first ones I reach for. I absolutely love it, and I'm just so happy to share it with you. So let's talk about the pros and let's talk about the cons. Though we can't finish out a video without at least talking a little bit more about the guitar. First off, for pros, ergonomics. This thing is easy to play. It does not feel like an 8-string. I'm not really sure why it doesn't. It is very clearly an 8-string, and it sounds like an 8-string. It performs like an 8-string. It just doesn't feel like one. For me, it feels closer to one of my 7-strings. It's that easy in the hands. I love the profile of the neck. I love the feel of the wenge. I already mentioned that. It's just a great instrument, and the ergonomics make it that way. Next thing is the weight. I do have another 8-string guitar, and it is from Agile as well. It is a monster. It is an absolute beast. It is the heaviest instrument that I own. Unfortunately, I don't play it very often because of that. I feel like I get a full-on workout when I do play it. And I was a little concerned that might end up being the case with this one just because the other one was. They're from the same brand. And no, this one is perfect weight. It's no heavier than any of my other 7-strings. It's even the same weight as some of my 6-strings. And I think a lot of that is due in part to the headless design. Without that headstock on there, without the tuners on there, and without, some of the other parts, the body being slimmed down just a little bit, it makes a huge difference as far as the weight goes. The next positive on this thing is the modern features. The headless design has started surging back into the spotlight, in the last 5 to 10 years. Agile definitely jumped on that bandwagon, but I think they're really nailing it and keeping up with their competitors, if not leading that. I think I'll actually talk a little bit about that more in a future video, but other modern features besides for the headless design include the fan fret and the active fishman fluences. These pickups just sound clean. They have great definition, even in an 8-string, and I really like them. I feel like I should clarify a point I had at the beginning of the video. I was talking about how the sound comes mostly from your pickups and from your amp. Let me clarify that. If you have pickups that are lower quality, pickups that are giving you ringing, they're giving you feedback, they're giving you bad buzz, they're just too hot, or their output's not high enough, then yeah, that's where you want to change out your pickups. So as far as initial quality of tone, yes, your pickups absolutely matter. I just did a video with my Squier Sonic that I ended up modding out, and the original pickup that came with it was just this tinny, ringy, metallic-y sound that I hated, and I ended up switching it out for a Seymour Duncan JB. That absolutely did the trick. So that would be a great example of an instrument that needed an upgrade to help with the tone related to the pickup. This instrument obviously doesn't have that problem. Now the rest of your tone, in my opinion, comes from your amp and from your speakers and your cab, but that's a different subject for another day, and I've also talked about that in another video as well. Finally, let's talk about the cons. The first con is the frets, and I'm not talking about the fan fret nature. As far as the fan frets go, I find that the less I think about it, the easier it is to play. I don't mind it. I kind of like it. Visually, it's striking. It sets it apart. And the fact that you can have 2 scales on the same instrument is really nice. You've got 28 inches on the bass side, and you've got 25 inches on the high end. I really kind of like that. So in that respect, the fan fret is cool. What I'm talking about here, though, is the fact that these are nickel. In this price range, a lot of manufacturers have moved to stainless steel. Not all of them have. I know some, even the big brands, are kind of dragging their feet as far as that goes. But at this price point, I would expect stainless steel frets. It would have been nice. And unfortunately, these are a little bit sharp. Not everywhere. It's not a problem everywhere on the neck, but there are some sharp fret ends. And that surprised me a little bit simply because none of my other Agile guitars have that problem. They all have fantastic fretwork. This one just does not. The last problem with the frets is there's also a little bit of separation from the fretboard. I do not have the tools or the knowledge or the experience to really fix that. I'm going to have to bring it in to get that taken care of. So when I do bring it in, I'll have them, shave the frets a little bit, make them rounded a little bit better, and I'll also take care of that fret separation from the fretboard. I'm really hoping that won't be too expensive or too time intensive for my luthier, but regardless, it will be something good that needs to be taken care of. The last kind of con that I had was the overall size. And that's, for me, separate from the weight. You can have a light instrument that is very large, and you can have a smaller instrument that is very heavy. And I already said that the weight on this thing was fantastic, but the overall size for me was a little off-putting. I've had other headless models. I had a Legator 7 string at one point. I ended up selling that one. I had the same problem with that one. It just felt a little small in my hands. I do like a larger instrument. I do like something that I don't feel like I have to baby. I'm a big dude after all. I like something that I can hold on to. I also have a big 5-string bass that I love to play. So I'm used to having a large instrument. This one is in some ways and not in others. So this one's kind of a nitpicky thing, but it's still a con in my book. If it were a little bit bigger, maybe in the body, that would be positive for me. But then you might lose some of the pros like the weight. Anyway, that's all I have for today. This has been the Agile Perihelion 825-28. Again, like I said, this has become one of my go-to instruments, and I absolutely love it. If you haven't checked out Agile, you definitely should. And if you're in the market for a headless, this is one of the ways to go. We'll talk a little bit more about Agile in a future video, but for today, that's all. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you for joining me. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy. Later.